Hello, everybody around the world and wherever you are, and also wherever you're not. Welcome. I'm Lee Camp. This is Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello.
And thanks for joining us today. We have a bunch of important stories. We're going to get into the most censored news of 2023, according to Project Censored. A lot of very important stories there. But before we get to those, let's get to some breaking news on a few fronts. To begin with, longtime political prisoner of the United States,
New York Times
grabbed
article.
up and tortured, named Alex Saab. You've probably heard me cover that story before. He was initially kidnapped in Cape Verde, basically at the request of the United States. This is a Venezuelan diplomat. And you'll notice the New York Times headline says, which is the same as most mainstream media, U.S. releases ally of Venezuelan president. Well, at least they're acknowledging Maduro as the president. That's a big step. But he's not just an ally. He is a Venezuelan diplomat who was on a diplomatic mission
to
Iran.
Yeah, to basically, and I'm reading from the national lawyer. Wow, why can't I say lawyer?
Try this. Lawyer.
National, that word, guild.
Try lollipop.
National Lollipop Guild.
Yeah.
There needs to be one. I'm just saying. So he was, as you pointed out, he was kidnapped when he was a special envoy for Venezuela, and he was arrested. He was going to Iran some humanitarian support because you all know this, but Venezuela is having a rough time because of U.S. sanctions. Tens of thousands of people have died because of U.S. sanctions in Venezuela. And so Alex Saab, one of his unfortunate duties was to try and ensure that more people didn't die. So he was on his way to Iran in order to do that. And he was kidnapped without a warrant, with an Interpol red notice received only after he was arrested. So they went back after he was already arrested and was like, "Oh, I guess here." There were a series of charges related to the violation of U.S. sanctions. So the U.S. kidnapped a diplomat in a country that is not the U.S., not Iran, and not Venezuela. Didn't have a warrant for his arrest and only came with an Interpol notice after he was arrested, and his crimes were all related to U.S. sanctions, which, according to the UN, are illegal. So there's just a lot to unpack there. And then he was tortured. He was waterboarded.
Also tortured to the point that several of his teeth were knocked out.
For seeking humanitarian aid. And like, even if the sanctions were legitimate, that's basically like committing an economic crime, right? And so he was treated like basically like a terrorist. Now, I understand that what the U.S. calls terrorists are oftentimes not, but he was treated like a terrorist and tortured. And again, no one should be tortured, basically just for doing his job of trying to secure humanitarian aid for Venezuela. So that's like the backstory of this. And this has been going on for quite some time. Obviously, this was 2020 when he was kidnapped. So yeah, this is a big deal.
And it was in exchange for 10 American prisoners that the U.S. wanted back. But yeah, I think you summed it up well, how insane it is, how much against international law it is. And as was the U.S. stealing the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, D.C., also against international law, because technically that is Venezuelan ground, despite it being in Washington, D.C., according to international law. And the U.S. still managed to steal it and give it to a guy who had never received a single vote for president of Venezuela.
Also, going back to Alex Saab, because the NLG shared this, which...
Not the NFL, different thing.
And I said... Didn't I say NLG?
Yeah, I was just clarifying for people, not the NFL.
Oh, because I was like, I never even mentioned the NFL, so it'd be weird if I slipped up and said that.
You said NLG.
So, according to the New York Times, he was arrested, kidnapped, in order to, quote, help untangle Mr. Maduro's economic web of support and assist the authorities in bringing charges against other allies of the Venezuelan government, end quote. So that's why he was tortured, so that they could untangle Mr. Maduro's economic web of support.
Right,
What
which
does that sentence even mean?
Which, if a country is behaving like a regular country, of course they have economic support. So the decision of the U.S. to declare everything Venezuela does to try and help their people illegal is just bullshit the U.S. did. That's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's also laughable and horrific, and the way the U.S. behaves with zero accountability. Anyway, very exciting. I've been covering the Alex Saab story for years now, and very exciting that he is now finally freed again. Next up, Julian Assange, right? Anyone? As long as we're undoing terrible, internationally illegal crimes by the U.S. government, let's free Julian Assange.
Wouldn't that be nice? There are apparently some days of action happening in February regarding Julian Assange, if he's not extradited before then, of course.
Yeah, they claim the final chance for him not to be extradited comes in February. So I guess now the latest update is he likely wouldn't be extradited before then, but who knows?
Well, but that's the thing. It's like if the U.S. just decided that they wanted him over here, Britain's not going to say no.
Yeah.
Like they've gone along with everything up until now. It would be weird for them to be like,
No, well, and the only time they didn't go along with it was they didn't say they disagreed with any segment of the U.S. case against Assange, which is all garbage. All they said was he's likely to die in custody in the United States or kill himself.
Yeah, because U.S. prisons are so horrific.
Uniquely horrific.
But then they got the UK to overturn that.
Yeah, then they undid that.
So
okay, other breaking news. This is coming from Kit Clarenberg, who, I generally trust him because I've never seen him be wrong about anything. He writes great stuff for Mint Press and Gray Zone and others. Anyway, this is yesterday. He said an hour and a half ago, a Russian special flight squadron plane landed in Washington, D.C. They are used by Kremlin officials. Apparently, this type of plane is regularly used by Lavrov, the top Russian diplomat, and it set out from St. Petersburg, and he said, you do the math. So basically, his suggestion is that the U.S. is meeting with some Russian representative to basically hammer out a peace deal on Ukraine because, again, it's a proxy war. It's not actually between Russia and Ukraine. It's between Russia and the United States. And NATO to some degree. But and then he followed that with a tweet that the Washington Post, which is essentially CIA run, I mean, it's basically CIA run, has just dropped the tab on their homepage that says war in Ukraine. So for the past year and a half, they've had a war in Ukraine tab that is now gone. And it's kind of gone viral. People have noticed that this tab has disappeared. Washington Post has said, not
covering that anymore.
Not a big deal on that anymore.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I mean, that just more evidence that the U.S. is backing out of the proxy war in Ukraine. As I've mentioned many times, the United States got some of what they wanted. Some of it backfired, like the sanctions. Many of them have backfired on the United States. But blowing up the Nord Stream was something that was in, on Joe Biden's wish list for the holiday season. So
he doesn't know it's the holiday.
There's many things they got. They got getting. He doesn't know what year it is. He knows the holidays, but he might think 1934. But anyway. More evidence that this thing could be over. This proxy war could be over after the U.S. has helped kill 100,000 or whatever Ukrainians. Okay, so there's a big union. This is a little more breaking news before we get to the most censored stories of the year. By the way, everyone, as always, please hit thumbs up. Thousands of you are watching around the world, but often only a few of you will take the time to hit thumbs up, but it really does make a difference. So please click thumbs up, click share, click subscribe. It makes a real difference. So there's a big fight going on with the unions against Tesla in Scandinavia. And do you want to set this up?
So basically, I don't know all the details, but I've been following somewhat of it. basically in Sweden, Sweden is like such a hot mess these days that anytime they do something good, I'm like, oh, maybe it's not too late. But so basically the Swedish Tesla workers have been basically like pushing back and refusing and going on strike because Tesla is a shit workplace and a shit organization, and Swedes are astonishingly used to better than a lot of American workers have.
And if you actually read up on the history of Tesla and Elon Musk, he despises workers. He does everything he can to undermine them and undermine things like vacations and things like he, a guy, one example from years ago, a guy at Tesla, a higher up or something, an engineer or something, said he needed to be gone the following day because his wife was having their baby. And, Elon Musk responded, well, maybe you need to think about what's really important here and whether you're really devoted to this project. Basically threatening the guy's job for being gone for one day while his wife gave birth.
So basically on October 27th, EF Metall, it was the union that represents Tesla workers in Sweden, called for a strike because, and I feel like they waited a little too long on this one because Musk has been stonewalling them for 5 years, has refused to come to the bargaining table for 5 years, which is a long time to get effed over.
It seems like Musk called their bluff for a while there.
Right. Well, and I think this also speaks to the power of corporate power. Can I redo that sentence? This also speaks to the issue of corporate power in Sweden and the continued corporatization. Can I redo all of these sentences? Corporatization.
Of the railroad workers.
You know what? I will pour hot tea all over your lap. In Sweden, privatization and the basic like following the lead of the United States into the abyss of shittiness with regards to everything from the environment to workers' rights, all of that. So also this is a big deal because it represents the first strike in Tesla's history. So that's a little bit of backstory. And just recent, so it's been like a total shit show since that strike started. And just recently, Danish Tesla workers, or not even Tesla workers, I believe, workers that are supposed to do the shipping of Teslas and things like that, have gone on strike in solidarity with Swedish workers. So, I mean, and we usually there's a lot of brotherly love between the Scandinavian nations, and we make fun of each other, but this is evidence that we have each other's backs.
No, it's one of those things.
Shit goes down.
It's one of those things where you hate each other until it's you against some other group, and then you like each other. It's one of those things.
Totally. So basically, this is a really badass update, and there was a cool video that a Danish politician posted just recently regarding the Danish workers' solidarity. If you want to play that.
Okay, here we go.
And this guy is the guy speaking here, his name is Pelle Dragsted, and he is part of the Red Green Alliance, which is the furthest left alliance in Danish Parliament. So he's a member of the Danish Parliament.
And judging by the freeze frame, Elon Musk's corpse was present at this event.
I disagree with the idea of unions.
Hey Elon, don't mess with Nordic workers and our unions because you'll surely lose. You say that you disagree with the idea of unions. In the Nordic, we love our unions because they make our lives so much better. When your home country got richer during the last decades, the wealth remained in the pockets of you and other billionaires. Quite the opposite in Denmark. When we got richer, the workers got their share, thanks to our unions.
If Tesla gets unionized, it will be because we deserve it and we failed in some way.
Well, maybe you see it as a personal failure if Tesla get unionized, but for your workers, it certainly won't. Here in Denmark, our unions have secured a decent living wage for all workers, a work week of 37 hours, the right to at least 5 weeks of vacation, paid sick leave, and the right to 1 year of parental leave, it's all about freedom. The freedom for working families to live good lives. So, dear Elon, respect your workers and negotiate a deal. Or let me put it more bluntly, get unionized or get out.
Well said, Pelle.
Well, and some of the things that he's talking about is like on the list, like 5 weeks of paid. He didn't even say it all. Paid vacation. Could you
Well,
imagine?
that's
Like,
the minimum. Most
what-
people
that's
get
the
6 to 7.
that's the minimum.
weeks.
Can you imagine? Like, I don't know if I know any Americans with 5 weeks of paid
No, of
vacation,
course
and
you
it's like
don't.
standard.
Yeah, no, like even if you work at McDonald's or
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
a cab driver or what we would consider, unskilled labor in the US, which of course there's no such thing as unskilled labor, but even those jobs, like we're not talking about just doctors and shit, like the jobs that people don't typically want, they get 5 weeks paid vacation. And he also didn't point out it's 1 year of paid parental leave per parent. So like you have the right to take 2 years between a couple, meaning that your kid will be like, I don't know, emotionally secure by the time you go back to work.
And not end up like Elon Musk.
Right.
Emotionally a wreck. And emotional intelligence of roughly 0. But this is why I used to work at the comedy clubs in New York City, and they were filled with people from other countries, often Scandinavian countries. And you see them and they're like, oh, we're on our holiday. And it's like, oh, how long we're, for 6 weeks, we're like touring the United States. Oh, you have a lot of money saved up. Are you a doctor? No, we work at McDonald's. We're like, you're like, wait, you're touring other countries and you work at a fast food restaurant?
And this is also, I mean, the repercussions of this go, I mean, like it's so dangerous on so many different levels, because let's say that more Americans had the ability to travel and see other cultures and
learn things,
get exposed like to different ways of thinking. Like that could very quickly topple the concept of American exceptionalism, which is like the duct tape that's keeping this falling empire together right now.
Okay, so we don't forget it, why don't you, before we get to the most censored stories of the year, why don't you mention the days of action for the for the pipeline?
So basically this is a call that was put out. I mean, it's Earth First shared it, but it's a call by Appalachians Against Pipelines. You've definitely heard me mention them before. January 29th through 31st, the folks at Appalachians Against Pipelines are ramping up their fight against the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which again, we've talked about several times on this podcast. So I'm not going to rehash it here. If you want to learn more, just check out Appalachians Against Pipelines. So basically this is a call to action for folks to engage with direct action. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the path of the pipeline. They give a list of banks that are involved, investors, contractors that can be targeted wherever you might be. So you can check this post out at Earth First Journal on Instagram. You can also just check out, again, Appalachians Against Pipelines.
Earth First Journal on Instagram. Okay, so let's dive into Project Censored's top censored stories of the year. I covered this regularly on Redacted Tonight. Each year it came out. And now, and that was even before you became the co-host of the Project Censored podcast. So let's dive into the stories.
Sure. So which are you going, ascending or descending?
I'm going nowhere. You start saying a story and I'll find it. I'll put it up there.
Okay, so I'm gonna descend.
Let's not all descend.
So it's the top 25 censored stories, and they're numbered just because that makes it easier to give a list, not because we find these to be like this is number 12 is significantly more important than number 11. Like that's not really how it
also
works. People
like to click things with numbers.
Yes. So we're really we're trying to access monkey brains. So basically this list is submitted.
If you read the end, you get a banana. also.
Yes. This list is actually submitted by students. So that's the other thing that makes it cool. And then it's voted on by people who are part of the Media Freedom Foundation or otherwise part of Project Censored, including myself. So full transparency there.
And one other thing, generally, in my experience, covering these for years now, some of them, you guys, because you are maybe regular viewers of my show, or even if you're not, you are open-minded folks, you are going to go, well, duh, because something that's this is censored from the mainstream media. It doesn't mean that you might never have heard of this story.
Especially if you're already a fan of our show.
Yeah. So it's really like when you look at them across mainstream media, most of these get a roughly zero coverage. So go ahead.
Okay, so number 12, fossil fuel money skews university climate and energy research. Now this might just feel like a duh anyway, but it's an important, it clashes with the supposed aims of colleges as going green. For instance, Princeton University announced in September 2022 that it was going to divest from fossil fuels. Well, that sounds great, doesn't it? But based on this report by Data for Progress, it found of 27 universities received together more than $667 million in fossil fuel donations or pledges between 2010 and 2020. The top recipients of these fossil fuel funding from the likes of ExxonMobil, BP, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and so on were University of California, Berkeley, which I think everyone just assumes is like this hippy dippy green campus.
They think of Berkeley as like the most left-wing, leftist campus in the world. It's like, no, it's largely been captured. Like
UC Berkeley alone accepted $154 million during the 2010s from fossil fuel industries. So, and this, of course, dictates what kind of research goes on at these schools. How could it not? If you give a private university, well, actually it's a state university, but if you give a university $100 million, you really think they're going to be like, and we found also that you're murdering children. Like, no, that research is then not going to happen there.
But beyond just like, oh, we don't want to cover the things that is going to piss them off. Good research often takes money, and it takes a lot of money.
Yep.
And so even if these people were like, you know what, we're going to research everything. We don't care who funds us. Well, where's the funding going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
The funding is going to come more for the things that don't alienate fossil fuel companies.
And the final point on this that I'll share is basically a senior research fellow at the University of Oxford, Ben Franta, said fossil fuel firms have purposely sought to colonize academia with industry-friendly science rather than seed overt climate denial. So again, this is one of their tools and tactics. As opposed, because they're losing the war on just saying that climate change isn't a thing, right?
Right.
So they have to find more covert ways of operating, and this is one of them.
Now they're doing things like Chevron is green, or we believe in a green future, or whatever.
Like clean coal's a thing, or
whatever. Yeah, clean coal. It's just like they are largely abandoning, not fully, but abandoning the idea of climate change isn't happening because they're losing that fight. 99.7% of all peer-reviewed studies show that it is. So now it's like, well, but we can fix it by windmills. We'll put one in each state, and then that's all we'll do. So fine.
I'm gonna
next up.
I'm gonna skip that one, and I'm gonna go to this one. Not that you know what I'm talking about, but and again, this full list is at projectcensored.org. Also, on the topic of climate, this might also feel like a duh moment, but this study exposes electric utilities' climate disinformation campaigns. So, basically, a report published by Wow, I can't. You know what? My brain's like, I quit today. Environmental Research Letters. Electric utility companies, research groups, and trade associations have been aware of climate change and its effects since the 1960s. I think it's actually earlier, but neglected to inform the public in order to pursue their own financial gains. I wonder, wow, that's shocking, isn't it? So basically, this is thousands and thousands of documents spanning 5 decades that like PG&E, for instance, which is the company that oversaw the complete annihilation of the unfortunately named Paradise, California.
Yep.
They knew shit was not okay. They knew of the threats posed by climate change, but totally disregarded them because power companies can do a lot to mitigate the fallout from climate chaos, right? But they chose not to. And of course, they continue to use predominantly fossil fuel energy, right? So like, we're in Baltimore. They're putting in new gas lines because quote unquote natural gas, which I always hated that term. It's like, it's natural oil too, but it's like dirty as hell. Like,
all this stuff's natural,
Right.
but
So, like,
it was a PR company somewhere in a boardroom. They spent $100 million to come up with the term natural gas so that the people think it sounds nice.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So yeah, that one feels like a duh, but it also just further points out like how thick the web of collaboration is when it comes to, fudging us over. I'm trying not to say the F word because, yeah, it messes with the numbers, which you know what? Never mind.
Yeah, I did find out after years you're
not the only one who said so. I've since heard it from several other people that they try to not say the F word, which is like YouTube, a comma to me. So it's so hard.
Comma. YouTube has decided that shows with a lot of effing going on, they're not going to promote or show to people very much. So
anyway, moving on. And again,
just use the word fracking.
It's actually dirtier. This list is available at projectcensored.org. So this one's number 5, certified rainforest carbon offsets, mostly worthless. So this
is one of the greenwashing things that we were basically, this is one of the things that fossil fuels was promoting, was just like, we'll just trade carbon things.
Which is hilarious because it suggests that the rainforest gives a shit whether you've bought the right to pollute. Like, that never made any sense to me. And it doesn't make sense to anyone who isn't like deeply steeped in the ideology of capitalism.
Well, and further, get this, until like a year ago or 2 years ago, Tesla was not profitable, and the billions of dollars that they made each year all came from selling their carbon offsets to other companies. Because they were electric cars. They had these government allotted carbon offsets, carbon trade, cap and trade shit, and so they just sold it to the tune of billions of dollars to other companies so they could pollute.
So the world's largest offset certifier is a company called Verra, and basically this report shows that they don't do what they're supposed to do. It found that of their 29 rainforest offset projects, 21 had no climate benefit. 7 had significantly less climate benefit than claimed. While one project yielded 80% more climate benefit than claimed. The study concluded overall that 94% of the credits approved by these projects were worthless and never should have been approved. Because you can't green capitalism your way out of this mess.
No, you can't.
Like, because companies make billions of dollars, and if you can just buy the right to pollute more, like, how the hell is that supposed to actually make a difference in the real world? It doesn't. Of course.
Yeah. Capitalism, to get a little deeper here, folks, I think most of you know capitalism is the idea of infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. It is the idea that you have to, in order to be successful in this capitalist world, grow forever, which is physically impossible. So the environment collapses and dies around us. And I don't know if you know this part, but we need the environment. Without environment, we will no be. So
we will know.
So you want the environment to be there, but you cannot try and capitalize your way out of a collapsing planet. And that's what we're trying to do right now with climate crisis. And it's not just insane, it's pathetic, it's harmful. There's already hundreds of millions of climate refugees already right now, today. So
Can I just before we go on to the last censored story that I want to cover, when you were talking,
Oh, we have more than that.
No, I know, but I'm gonna cut it off there. What?
Then we're not gonna have a show.
We do have a show. Because I'm about to share something. So you know me, I can always tangent my way out of this shit.
Okay.
But it's good tangents.
Okay.
Like this quote by Jack D. Forbes, who was a Powhatan, Lenape, and Lenape historian, writer, scholar, and activist. He wrote the book Columbus and Other Cannibals, which is brilliant, and I recommend everyone read it if you can find it. I think it's out of print. Anyway, he wrote, quote, "I can lose my hands and still live. I can lose my legs and still live. I can lose my eyes and still live. I can lose my hair, eyebrows, nose, arms, and many other things and still live. But if I lose the air, I die. If I lose the sun, I die. If I lose the earth, I die.
Mm-hmm.
If I lose the water, I die. If I lose the plants and animals, I die. All of these things are more a part of me, more essential to my every breath than my so-called body. What is my real body?" I love that quote.
It's beautiful. And I also, it's not my original thought. I was going off of other great thinkers, but in my last stand-up comedy hour, probably a quarter of it had to do with the power of our environment and the idea that if you take someone out of their environment, if you were to drop us into the vacuum of space, we would die in 30 seconds or a minute or something.
Wow, it's even that long?
Yeah, it might be less. It might be less, but it depends on what part you're in. Exactly how freezing cold it is.
Just west of the
how quickly your eyeballs freeze and burst. But you take it out, so we die quicker if you take away our environment than if you cut off our head, or roughly equal. So the idea that our environment, we don't have to live with it and in a sustainable way, is just completely idiotic, stupid.
It is the foundation of why we're dying on this planet.
Yeah.
And why we're taking so much of the planet with us. So this last one that I wanted to share here is stalkerware could be used to incriminate people violating abortion bans. So this one is important on several levels, and I wanted to discuss some of security culture and things like that here. So stalkerware
sounds like something you yell while running.
No, I think if you just yell stalker.
Oh, okay.
Because stalkerware is surveillance apps that secretly record and upload cell phone activities. These could become a significant legal threat to people seeking abortions, according to a pair of articles published in the wake of the U.S. Supreme Court's bullshittery. So basically, in June of 2022, Ray Hodge reported that, quote, "Already the digital trails of abortion seekers can become criminal evidence against them in some states where abortions were previously prosecuted. And the legal dangers make abortion seekers in even more states." So basically, and there have been, just like there were in Texas, where they were offering actual money to people to turn people in who
bounties.
are seeking bounties. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. They were offering bounties to people to turn in people seeking an abortion. Well, your digital timeline, your digital tracks could be used to basically get some asshole $10,000 and you put in jail for seeking your medical right to an abortion. And
don't get one of those fetus Fitbits.
Jesus.
Because then they can track it anywhere.
They point out these could, quote, include conversations that pregnant people have with their healthcare providers, nurses, doctors, and insurance company employees, which should technically not be something that people can share or have access to, right? Because whatever you say to your doctor should be confidential, right? Supposedly. And then that also means that those who are in conversation, who seek to aid in abortion, could also be charged as accomplices in these cases.
Yeah.
And this is because a lot of these, even if it's not that some jackass gets a hold of your phone, stalkerware phone apps, that's not the only cause for concern here. This person explains that third-party data brokers sell sensitive geolocation data culled through a vast web of personal tracking tech found in apps, browsers, and devices to law enforcement without oversight. So this is the other point. Even if you don't, there aren't stalkerware phone apps on your phone, there's not, somebody's not turning you in, et cetera, just the fact that like you're using this and you go across the state line and therefore there's some kind of evidence of in your phone of where you've been, and even perhaps like, oh, well, they know that there's an abortion clinic there or whatever. That's enough because they hand that information over to the law enforcement agencies. So this brings up the second point that I wanted to talk about briefly, which is security culture. I think a lot of people hear that phrase and they're like, oh, that sounds like, ugh. But it's actually really important. And it's something that is discussed a lot in organizing circles, mutual aid circles. And there are levels of security culture. There's like the, planning some nefarious shit where it's like only 4 people and you put all of your phones in a Faraday bag. But there's also just thinking about like, okay, what am I doing in this increasingly overtly fascist state that they might have a problem with? And it doesn't necessarily even have to be an abortion, because again, if they want to get you, they can get you. And I'm not trying to make people afraid here. I'm just saying, like,
that's what I
want to say.
It's
have a
not
cop
just
in your
abortion.
pocket.
It's not just abortion.
No, I know.
It's a good place to start to start thinking about it. But they are using this for all kinds of things, for tracking people all over the place. And if they want to get you, they have enough information on everybody that they can find a way. That's my point.
And that's why like a lot of organizers will say, like, you have a cop in your pocket. And even if you claim that, oh, I have, oh no, it's not on or whatever, just like start using security culture in how you interact with folks, how you plan things. And just, I like the way Glenn Greenwald put this when I went to go see him speak after he had written the book about Snowden. And he said, I'm continuously confronted by people who say, well, I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. So it's not my problem. And then he says, I always hand them a blank piece of paper and I say, okay, can you just write down all your passwords to your email accounts? I mean, you have nothing to hide. I'm not gonna like delete anything. I just want to look around. And of course, nobody does that. And he's like, so you just have this feeling that it's your right to have some privacy.
Yeah.
It's not about whether you're, torturing gerbils in your basement. Like it's not about whether you quote unquote have something to hide. It's about the fact that all of us have a right to privacy, whether that's medical privacy, whether that's privacy when you're interacting with friends and community members. You have a right to privacy. So being engaged in security culture is necessary. So, and there's a lot of ways, again, in tiers, ways of doing this. I would recommend that everybody have Signal. Like, don't message people on regular text. Use Signal.
If you're gonna do FaceTime, do a little cat nose and ears things.
I just say
facial recognition.
Wear a fun mask.
Yeah.
Go a little eyes wide shut with it. So. Yeah, that's my just little spiel on security culture. There's a lot if you want to, dive into learning more. But anyway.
All great points. We're going to continue this show over on Rumble, but I also wanted to, before you guys go, if any of you are not following us, to the free Rumble, free Rumble viewing of the rest of the show. It's rumble.com/Lee Camp. I just wanted to say a couple of things real quick. For one thing, the second episode of my new show at Breakthrough News just came out. There it is right there, how Israel buys support from celebrities and influence. You can check it out on YouTube. That's youtube.com/Breakthrough News. Please do that after you're done here. Do not leave us yet.
Does that feel a little conflicting for you? Like they're leaving you to watch you?
As long as it's only me they view, then that's fine. Only me. The other thing is, where this is, I don't know if I mentioned this the last live stream. This is the last live stream I'm going to do till probably December 26th or something. So I will not be here tomorrow as I normally am. So yeah, I will see you like December 20 or December 27th, actually. So I will see you December 27th. And If you're looking to do some end of the year giving, I hope you will join up at leecamp.net. That will take you to my locals page, which that community, the locals community, is where you can hang out, you can post your own stuff, we can chat. There's Q&As with me all the time. There's extra segments, all that good stuff. That's at leecamp.net, which forwards you to locals. Or if on Rumble you push the red join Lee button. And you can join up there for free. There is a supporter level, but you can also do it for free.
If you want to sample the goods.
If you want to sample the goods.
But then again, you're doing that now. So how much sampling do you need?
That's a great question. That's a perfect question.
Who's going to want the cow if you're...
A lot of prostitutes say the same thing.
If you're drinking the milk for free. No, milking the...
You work on that. I'm going to...
If you're milking the cow...
If you're milking... Listen,
why pay it?
If you're stripping a cow and you...
Don't pay the cow if you got your hands on its udders.
Yep. Don't lick the udders. So... All right, I'm at Rumble. We're going over to rumble.com/LeeCamp. That's rumble.com/LeeCamp. It is free to watch there, and locals will continue as well. So everybody join us there. Okay, now let's continue.
What are we continuing with?
I don't know.